Welcome to aminacademy.com. In heat and mass transfer, let us discuss about modes of heat transfer. Heat transfer, which is defined as the transmission of energy from one region to another as a result of temperature gradient, takes place by the following three modes: conduction, convection, and radiation. Here, first we'll discuss about conduction. Conduction is the transfer of heat from one part of substance to another part of same substance, or from one substance to another substance by a physical contact with it without appreciable displacement of molecules forming the substance. Here, look at this. A rod conduct the heat from this fire to through the length of the rod and comes to the hand. So this heat is transferred from this end to this end by conduction. Here in solids, the heat is conducted by a following two mechanisms: by lattice vibration, that is faster moving molecules or atoms in the hottest part of the body transfer by a impact some of their energy to adjacent molecules. That means the from adjacent molecules the heat is transferred continuously. By transport of free electrons, free electrons provide a energy flux in the direction of decreasing temperature. For metals, especially good electrical conductors, and the electronic mechanism is responsible for the major portion of heat flux except low temperature. In case of gases, the mechanism of heat conduction is simple. The kinetic energy of a molecule is a function of temperature. The kinetic energy is the function of temperature. That means temperature variation. Due to the temperature variation, kinetic energies of the molecule is created. These molecules are in a continuous random motion exchanging energy and momentum. When a molecule from a high temperature region collides with a molecules from the low temperature region, it loses energy by collision. In liquids, the mechanism of heat is nearer to that of the gases. Nearer that of gases. However, the molecules are more closely spaced and intermolecular forces come into play. Here, in conduction, uh, in metals heat is easily conducted. That means in solid, conduction is obtained quickly. Then convection is mostly in liquids and radiation through gases. In that we'll do further discussion about. Here this we discussed about the conduction. That means mostly it is through the solids. Next we'll discuss about convection. Convection is the transfer of heat within a fluid by mixing of one portion of the fluid with another. Convection is possible only in a fluid medium and is that means fluid means liquid and gases which are flowing and is directly linked to with the transport of medium of itself. Convection constitutes a macro form of the heat transfer since macroscopic particles of a fluid moving in space cause the heat exchange. The effectiveness of heat transfer by convection depends largely upon the mixing motion of the fluid. So, fluid quickly mix together. That means that heat transfer by convection is also more. For a convection is two types: free or natural convection. Free or natural convection occurs when the fluid circulates by virtue of the natural differences in densities of hot and cold fluids. The denser portion of the fluid moves downward because of the greater force of gravity as compared with the force on the less dense. Forced convection, when the work is done to blow or pump the fluid, it is said to be forced convection. In convection, suppose in a boiler, water is heated, a small boiler, water is heated, downside heat is applied. In that, the nearer portion of the heat is heated first, then it mixes with the next layer of liquid, then next layer of liquid, next layer of liquid, like it's convecting the heat from lower to higher throughout everywhere also inside the medium. Now, next is radiation. Radiation is the transfer of heat through space or matter by means of other than conduction or convection. Radiation heat is throughout of a electromagnetic waves or quanta, and quanta, that means an emanation of the same nature as light and radio waves. All bodies radiate heat, even our body also radiating heat to the surroundings. So a transfer of heat by radiation occurs because hot body emits more heat than it receives and a cold body receives more heat than it emits. Here, through the sun, we are getting a heat by radiation itself, because from sun to earth most of the place is empty, that means vacuum. So through the electromagnetic vibration energy, that heat comes to us by radiation. The properties of radiant heat is generally as similar to those of light. Some of the properties are: it does not require the presence of material medium for its transmission. Without medium, radiation occurs. Radiant heat can be reflected from the surface and obeys the ordinary laws of reflection. It travels with velocity of light. Like lights, it shows interference, diffraction, and polarization, etc. It follows the law of inverse square. The wavelength of heat radiation is longer than that of a light waves, hence they are invisible to the eye. So heat radiation we cannot see because its heat radiation is longer than, because the wavelength of heat radiation is longer than that of the light waves. Now, from this all discussion, we can understand about the modes of heat transfer. We have done. Please subscribe our YouTube channel.